Are the things that I ascribed to you, did you actually write them?
Or I'm sure if I went through your private messages,
No doubt,
and I went through every single fucking message you've ever written, I could cherry pick something out of them to make you look bad too. They're doubling down on their lies. They're going after me to punish me because I'm speaking out against them. What's important is education and people knowing context, because that's what gives meaning to things. I had conversations with Guy Oseary early on that were very off-putting, with like vague threats, like I could help you or I could hurt you.
So the reason I wanted to have this discussion with you is because, young man, when I look back through the history of the work that you've done, it's hard to deny that you are indeed an artist. You are 100% bona fide an artist. And I think so many of the people that we see, particularly in the NFT space, I would struggle to give them that moniker. So what I want to do is I want to go back to the beginning. And the ironically entitled Internet Archaeology, because when I go through your website, which you probably haven't updated in years, so many of the links are 404s now. Did you know?
Yeah, I did know. I do know that. There's a lot of reasons for that. The web is always changing, and I kind of move very quickly. And so, keeping up with, servers and keeping up with the latest technology is daunting when you have literally 600 websites that you've made or something like that, especially if you're like not getting paid to do that. So, I have client work that has been, that has, it's hard to access as well, mostly because a lot of the work that we did was like very bleeding edge technology, and some of the it's almost like Flash, like for instance, Flash. There's so many amazing websites that were created on Adobe Flash. And like literally now Adobe Flash doesn't exist. Like you can't even install it into Chrome. You would have to like get a new, you'd have to like format an old computer hard drive and put like old operating system and old browser in order to even run like Adobe Flash website. So like I invented face filters with MIA that tracked your face in 2010. That was a site that was based in Adobe Flash. And none of that works now. Like, if I was to send you the link, it doesn't work because Adobe Flash doesn't exist. It's been sunset. So, so there are a myriad of reasons, some of which, like I said, are more on the technical level. Others are like on hosting level where like the hosts will, like in the Internet Archaeology thing, like that was hosted because that's one of my first projects, and so that was hosted on a server that basically discontinued its service. Like the ISP that was hosting it was like, we don't want to host websites anymore. And I was like, okay. I mean, I have an archive of it, but I have to just put it back up online, and I haven't had time. Like I probably have had time, but I've been very engrossed and like focused on between my client work. Yeah, the future and what I'm doing now. But I do really want to get that up. And you're right, it is very ironic that Internet Archaeology is not online. I'm sure there are videos of it and screen grabs and stuff, but the skinny of that project was I was working in advertising as an intern in 2008, and I didn't really connect with that work that much. I helped design the Burberry website, and I was doing some like high-end branding, and it was cool as a kid to realize like, oh, my skills in Photoshop could actually get me paid. And I didn't really have any experience in that field at all. And that was fun, but at the same time, it wasn't like, I didn't find it culturally rewarding or cool or anything. So interestingly enough, around that time, Yahoo had announced that they were discontinuing their hosting of Geocities. And Geocities is a fundamental Web 1, I would say, group of a network of websites that was a very vibrant community. And it was before social media, when you would have to learn some code, figure out some graphic software, and figure out what you wanted to make a website about. Maybe you were into sports, so you made a website about sports, or maybe you're into pets or music, or you just wanted to make a resume or a portfolio of your work, whatever. So all of those things together created this like very creative playing field on the internet, where because there were no rules and it wasn't really a template base like how all websites are now, it was way more free and open and crazy. And so there was also less precedent for how to make things look in general. So people were still figuring it out. So the internet was whimsical and weird. And it was also when Web 2 was in full swing. So that whole older internet was really frowned upon in aesthetic ways, but also in kind of it was seen as very almost like caveman or something, like not advanced, you know, like, oh, those are people who were, you know, like they were I don't know, just like people used to make fun of GIFs. That's something that like a lot of people now don't realize. Like when I started getting into internet archaeology, like there was intense opposition to Yahoo was deleting all of Geocities content. So there was intense opposition to have that stuff online because it was seen as ugly and useless. But a lot of artists like Petra Kortright, John Michael Bowling, Nasty Nets people, you know, and many others, Corey Archangel, were very inspired by that era of the internet that we grew up with. And just like how many art movements are cyclical, like if you go to the Met, you might see a class doing drawings of a Rodin sculpture. So in that sense, art informs other art, and people are constantly taking references and building on the past. And that era of the internet just wasn't seen as art. And so the goal of internet archaeology was to put it into that light. And in doing so, I met a lot of really great people. And I realized that meeting people and bringing people together through common threads was where my point of passion was. And it wasn't necessarily like archiving the whole internet. It was really the process of like meeting a bunch of people through like-minded interest and working towards a common goal. And so with that in mind, I co-founded DumpFM, which is a website that was sort of a throwback as well. It was at a time when chat was not really big. I mean, it's crazy to think about, but there was a time before Telegram and Discord and the myriad of abundance of chat programs that we have now, when like chat wasn't really something that people did. Like they had, you know, text messages, obviously, but like chat rooms were dead. But chat rooms were once vibrant, like on AOL. And I mean, at that time, it was like IRC was probably the most vibrant. But I was like, what if we make a chat room that's all image based? And you know, that was an amazing thing, because it created this basically attracted a community of artists who were really into like rapid creation. It's kind of like how if you send someone an email, the expectation of a response is different than if you send someone a text message. Perhaps if you send someone an email, it's okay if they don't respond in a day or something. But if you send someone a text message, you might start worrying, like, what happened if they don't respond in like an hour? So this room, which I guess the culture of it stemmed from like my own culture, which is internet art, just created such a lively, extremely creative, fast output collaboration platform experiment. And that was really like the beginning of a bigger career for me, I think, was making that site. But when I made Internet Archaeology, I got like an article in Wired magazine. And that was like a big deal for me. I was like 20 or 21 or something.
Yeah,
I found
I found you on TechCrunch, and it was weird because TechCrunch design wise hasn't changed at all. And here was this article. I thought, oh, this must be from like a couple of years ago. No, this is from like 2009 or something. Absolutely insane. But what I think is really important here is that from a very early point, you were recognizing that the culture of the internet was a culture and could be treated as such and respected as such. And that for me, that's what's so weird. I made a Geocities website and it sucked balls, but I fucking made the thing and I got it done and I learned how to do it and it sucked, but I did it. And that's the thing that a lot of people haven't done.
It's like saying like, maybe it didn't suck. It's like saying like the cave of LaSalle. Does that suck? Like, you know what I mean? Like cave paintings or primitive, tools or, you know what I mean? Like,
no, it sucked. Actually, I can say it. It sucked. It sucked. Okay, but what it doesn't matter. It was, I know what you cover. Angel Fire, things like that. These names that are just like, what? Like kids don't understand kids.
No.
But at this point.
But what's interesting when you say kids don't understand is they actually do understand, because all of those aesthetics, all of that culture literally is the foundation of the internet. And like quite literally, like so much internet art, aesthetic in fashion as well comes from that era.
It does.
Of lo-fi and GIF and fun. A lot of it, not only the aesthetic, but the attitude, like the idea of just kind of being wild on the internet and being a kid. You know what I mean? There's something very playful about Geocities, I think.
Well, you said something interesting there as well, that we've become basically slaves to filters and ease of templates and ease of access, so that everyone has the same tools and everyone looks the same, talks the same, sounds the same, has the same expression, because we will copy each other. Whereas I think,
and the algorithm prioritizes that, like the algorithm and the whole like gamification of social media in terms of likes and followers and reblogs and all that stuff pushes people into a funnel of conformity.
Which is why I think it's ironic that people have an issue with you, because you are literally the poster child for the best parts of internet culture, and yet we're.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, but you are. DumpFM, when you go back and look at it, if you haven't, go and check out what was going on. This is where literally everything that you do now, when you post a GIF on Discord, 4chan, wherever, when you use all these memes, that's where it came from. That's where the best of these
are. What else we invented, which was really just something crazy, and it was adopted into Facebook and every platform after, was real-time likes. Like when you were on the site, if someone was to like your photo, you would get a notification in real time. Just little things like that would keep people engaged. And it was sort of a gamification, but for the purpose of creativity. Like I was against making DumpFM into an app, because I was like, oh, like Photoshop doesn't exist. I mean, at that point, I guess Photoshop exists now on iPhone, but at that point it was like, pretty limited what you could do creatively with images on a phone. And I was just like, I want this to be attractive to people who are creators. Like I don't really want it to just be like sharing pictures of your dog. You know what I mean? Like I want it to be, I mean, that's cool too, but like I want it to be something where the iterative nature of image making is the thing. And that's why we're here collaborating.
Yeah. New York Times called you an artist of the internet. That's 2014. How did you feel about that? Are you an artist of the internet?
Yeah, I think that was a pretty accurate headline. I like that article. I also, the subtext of the article is that it was written by Adrian Chen, who he himself is a internet legend. He's behind some of the most important journalism online. So that was cool to have Adrian reach out and write that about me. Also in the article was Virgil Abloh was quoted, who wasn't as big of a name then as he became later. And it is interesting to place myself in the scene amongst Ryan Jacquardin and Virgil Abloh. I think is pretty accurate in terms of like, you know, where I stand in like a broad sense of the world with my career. But
you made a website for Ryan, is that right?
I did a lot of, I worked with Ryan on images for W Magazine, contributing photoshopping, some ideation. One image in particular was very DumpFM. I mean, all of them were kind of DumpFM-y, but one of them was like probably one of the first times a meme was used like in print. But we used to have a meme where we'd put the stock photo like overlay on top of other people's images, like to like make them stop, like really just to juxtapose like a silly image and pretend it's like a stock photo. So one of the images in the W spread had that stock photo overlay on it, which is just hysterical.
Yeah, there's the Converse ad you did where you just left a box of shoes on the sidewalk, and then with a telephoto lens, you just like sniping people from a distance. Yeah, did you ever reach out to those people and say, listen, we've just photographed you? Or did No, you just let them go. It was just street photography.
Well, I don't know. What, are they going to chase after them? It was funny because the guy was wearing like a striped shirt and he looked like the Hamburglar or something. It was almost too perfect. I love that. Like, to me, a lot of art making is embracing serendipity and not forcing it too much. Like, to me, that's really important with everything I do in terms of the art. Like, it should just be very natural and not, I don't know, like I don't try, I try to have things have a really good conceptual foundation. And then like what goes from there is the art piece. Like that's the performative aspect. And that's what people should be paying attention to. And there's definitely some beauty in that because it's the X factor. It's the thing that I can't control. Like, for instance, the fact that the guy looked like the Hamburglar, like that's just crazy. Anyways.
You create the conditions for these things to happen. And that's definitely not something you can just buy off the shelf as a template. I have a real issue with this templatification of culture and what's considered art and how we present ourselves to the world. I think it's important that we disrupt that and have a conversation about that. I want to dig into Ho, because that was the one that got you a lot of notoriety. Had you dared to call yourself an artist already at this point? But when did you sort of get to that point where you're like, you know what, I am an artist and I should be, you know, confident enough to call myself that? I
mean, I think in college I was like calling myself an artist. So that was
what was your palette? What was your core skill set? Like, you know, how did you express yourself?
Like image making on Photoshop and like websites. And at that point I was much more into film. My senior work was like a mockumentary about myself, actually, where I put myself in the subject as the subject, and like the idea of performative reality mixing on the internet, I thought was like for sure the direction the internet was going. And I think I was pretty right. So I made my senior work called Ryder Ripps is Famous. And I kind of like created this hyperbolic character for myself that mixed fact and fiction. And I had like friends of mine and random people, like my senior advisor was Mackenzie Rourke, who wrote the Hacker Manifesto. And I had him in the movie. Like I would ask him like, hey, will you talk about like Karl Marx or something? And then I would just like chop it up so it says like Ryder is, and then like have him say the thing about Karl Marx, like to just like prove how words can get, you know, like misconstrued so easily.
Well, that's editing though. That's like when people watch documentaries and go, oh yeah, that's true. That really happened.
Exactly.
Like it's bullshit. Exactly. Like, the moment you edit anything, it's fiction.
You're right. And so I did that. And I had a supplemental like term paper that went with it. And I explained like what I was doing and like how, you know, a lot of the stuff was to get a rise out of people.
It's a common theme with Ryder, and it's one that makes it hard to know where he stands in the context of everything that we now know.
And the idea of the fact that the internet will prioritize and prop up sort of the most attention-grabbing, knee-jerk elements of expression, and that, you know, nuance and gray area and intellectualism is not prioritized on the internet because of the veracity of the feed. Like I was noticing that the feed, even at that time, which was 2008, was getting faster and faster and faster. Like we were seeing more and more and more images. The fact that Trump became president to me is like very much proof of this in practice. Like, you know, the most bombastic, salacious, crude, disgusting thing dominating the attention, and that converting into just popular consciousness to the point where it reaches a critical mass where enough people are polarized to believe one thing or the other.
That's the Roger Stone playbook, and he's been doing it since the late 70s. You know,
yeah.
So this is nothing new. It's just being weaponized by social media. Yeah. So we've got Adrienne Ho, which we'll circle back to, because I look at that and I'm like, okay, so you actually painted these for real. So these
some of that was also a performative aspect. I said that Jeff Koons' assistants paid in some of them.
Yes, this is the bit that I want to get to, because there's the work and then there's the story around the work. And in some ways, I think the story around the work is the work, and the work itself is really a proxy or a vehicle or a delivery mechanism for
absolutely
the actual work. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's true for any good art, actually. I mean, the art that I like isn't just purely decorative. It has a story. I mean, even like Van Gogh chopped his ear off, you know, like these are all contributing factors to how you see an artwork. And so the lore, the process of creation around the work is all part of the frame of the work. In the case of, the Ho series, I wanted to make work about the distortion of Instagram, really. I mean, the distortion of the internet, but the particular thing I was focusing on was Instagram. I was noticing Instagram in 2014 was really picking up and starting to bend culture and bend the way people perceive themselves and show themselves. And it was creating this feedback loop of perception, and where people are kind of like going off of what gets likes, and then, you know, bending and changing their content to cater to those likes, and while all the while still trying to appear as if there's a semblance of reality. Like, instead of it being like a glossy photo shoot in a magazine, or instead of creating a film, the trick really is to pretend that this is still your life. And now this is very, very commonplace with like like Instagram influencers, where they'll like, you know, create this perception of, you know, extreme decadence, but they're not showing you, like, you know, when they're cutting their fingernails, or like, you know, the fact that they don't really own these houses that they're taking pictures of, or they're taking pictures with other people's cars, or they have, you know, entire movie sets that literally look like private jets that they're like taking photos in front of, or, you know, all of these things to kind of create the perception of luxury. I mean, that's one type of influencers. There's all sorts of influencers. There's male bodybuilder, you know, photoshopping their images. There are, you know, there's just such an abundance of this, where, you know, you're basically creating a movie character, and you're pretending it's you. You're pretending it has some semblance within reality, but in reality, it's a completely fictional character. And part of the trick, part of the Houdini magic of the thing is your ability to convince that this is real, convince an audience that that's real enough. And so I started noticing that with Adrienne Ho's photos. They had a very surreal aspect to them, because I could tell as a creative, that these images were highly produced. Like, you know, they were set up, they had lighting, they were, you know, the outfits were extremely coordinated, but yet she would always take it in such a way that felt as if it was just a candid snapshot or something like that. And I think she gained a following because people felt, because of that candidness and that like false sense of reality, people would feel as if they knew her more so. And that's what you see with reality TV a lot. Like, people get attached to the Kardashians or anyone on reality TV because they almost feel like they know them. Like they're in their house with them. They are eating with them. They're just part of the family. They're just part of these people's lives. And illuminating that, I think was the goal. And so like I took the images and distorted them. I painted some of them. Most of them I got painted in China. There's like one particular village in China where you can have things painted pretty inexpensively. And then I said that Jeff Koons' assistants painted them, which is just hysterical.
Again, this is a feature of the Ryder Ripps brand, just pranking people, saying he did stuff that didn't actually happen. He actually claimed he redesigned the CIA website, which he hadn't. But then, you know, this is his art.
I also think that some of my work is about just the complexity and nature of authorship in a mechanicalized age. Like, the truth is authorship is more and more irrelevant, and provenance is more and more relevant.
Warhol didn't paint most of his paintings.
Well, they're silk screens.
Yeah, they were silk screen, and he had a bunch of slave workers basically in the factory just doing it for him, and they were there. But that's, I mean, he's such a clear touch point for you.
Architects don't like lay bricks to their buildings. Like, are you gonna like? Does that mean they're like Frank Lloyd Wright isn't good because he didn't like drive a nail into a wall? Like,
no, but Frank Lloyd Wright never claimed that Jeff Koons' assistants designed the building. I mean, there's a certain chutzpah in all of that, which you clearly revel in.
If Frank Lloyd Wright had said that Le Corbusier's assistants, people say stuff like that all the time. Like, oh, we have the same, you know, development team as you know, Zaha Hadid's. We're using the same construction contracting company. I mean, like, that's probably a true thing. It's just, to me, it's just the performative aspect of like, the idea that like someone's assistants would give work cachet. It's sort of a ridiculous claim anyways, because it's like very easy to prove, and it's really neither here nor there, because it's like, you know, like, oh, I have my taxes done by Jeff Koons' accountant. Like, is that going to make my? It's like, who cares?
Yes, brought to you by the people who cut Steven Spielberg's hair.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk to me about Rare Pepe, the gold one. I love this.
Oh yeah. So
I love this. This is nuts. So I'm gonna contextualize it for you. This is Rare Pepe, or Why Post Internet Art is Stupid. Ryder Ripps has rendered one of the most popular internet memes, Pepe the Frog, in 18 karat solid gold, effectively creating the rarest Pepe in the world. What's the date on this? It's 2016. You're already playing with rarity.
And I built that, but yeah, I mean, the idea with that was pretty clear. It's just to like make an obvious joke about the Rare Pepe joke, which is, the Rare Pepe joke is great because it's actually very relevant to NFT, because the joke of a Rare Pepe is that, you know, there is no like real rarity on the internet. Like, once you publish something online, it can spread in infinite abundance. So like the idea that there are like rare JPEGs is comical, and that's also why why NFTs, I think, and the first NFTs were really Rare Pepes, was to sort of solidify and make sense of that joke, and in a way to kind of double down on it. But in this instance, I was like, well, what if I just do make an actual Rare Pepe and just make it in gold? But what's interesting is this was right. I think I made that. I might have shown it in 2016, but I made it in 2015, like right before Pepe became like fucking ADL hate symbol. Like, I was actually, Matt Furie did drawings for DumpFM in 2000.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, because he was there, like on the DumpFM website. You can still see them.
Yeah, he wasn't really a Dump user, but the co-founder of Dump, Scott Osler, he was a huge like Something Awful fan, I guess. And he was like, you should hit up this guy, Matt, and like get him to do drawings for the site. And I said, okay, yeah, that looks cool. I like his drawings a lot. So I emailed him. I don't even think he charged me. He just like sent some drawings and was like, go ahead, use these. Super cool guy. We became, friendly since then. And yeah, to see his image morph has been a wild ride. And I think it's been very telling of how the internet works and how images change meaning and the pace at which they can change meaning, and how, ideas have a life of their own, especially when executed via hive mind. So the rare pepe thing was just kind of like a tongue-in-cheek joke to sculpturize something online. Some of my physical work is all like about that in a way, like to take something to bring something online, offline, IRL. There's something sort of humorous about that in general, because it's like forbidden, like it wasn't intended to be there. Like for instance, Adrian Ho's like Instagram photos, like those are intended to be, seen as some sort of advertisement for her in the context of this platform. But then when you paint them, that's a different meaning.
It's weird. I went on her Instagram page. Nothing has changed. It's the same as it was 6-7 years ago. It's like a robot. It's wild. And that's still paying the bills, I guess.
Well, what's interesting is the more mechanicalization and these topics that I've been working within and discussing become more and more real every day. Like this AI thing, right? Like there is going to be a point when like Adrian Ho could be AI. Like she doesn't have to be real because it's so mechanicalized. It's so predictable that there's no X factor, that you could train a machine to generate images within a certain style and within a certain framework of beauty. And we won't need, we're almost already there. Like we won't need human intervention at all. We could just spin up, we would say Instagram account of jacked guy who likes G-Wagons and is into popping bottles in the club, and it'll just generate images based on the plethora of, hundreds of thousands, millions of images that look just like that.
And the thing is, that will be more interesting than the real thing. That's why this is so weird right now, because you take an account like Lil Miquela, it's infinitely more interesting to see Lil Miquela do the Instagram thing than it is anybody who might look like Lil Miquela.
But you won't. But Lil Miquela in its most successful form is indistinguishable from a human being.
Correct.
Like that's the thing is because there's actual economic drive to do this, because it's cheaper to do. You don't have to rent a plane. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to go rent an outfit. You don't have to wake up in the morning. You could just program this bot, sleep all day, and make ad money from your like influencer bot, and that 100% is happening. It might already happen, but it's very close to happening if you look at the just the vivid images that are coming out of DALL-E and Midjourney.
Yeah, and they're kind of fascinating and interesting, and it's a new wild frontier. And I guess you're going to have NPC-like characters in the metaverse that wander around and act like human beings, and you can prod them and poke them, and they'll do stuff for you, and they'll just act as proxies.
Yeah, and also another thing that I expect to happen is AI to analyze the images that do well and the 10K projects that do well on blockchain with NFTs, and then generate similar projects and launch them, and that is all autonomous.
And we'll buy them because we're idiots.
Yeah, it doesn't even. And then you could also automate the promotion of those images by having a bunch of bot influencer accounts as well, because all these influencers are just basically bots themselves repeating WAGMI and GMGM and stuff like that. It could easily be a robot.
I mean, as a curator of internet culture, where do you stand on influencers? Are you? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm curious what you think of them. What's your personal take?
I think we need to do an audit of NFT culture, because I think it's not in a negative. I mean, sure, maybe a little negative, but just it's important that people understand the origin of this thing. Like, I've been in internet art for a long time, and I can tell you, the culture of NFT didn't come from internet art or digital art. It squarely came from the culture of shitcoins. And the culture of shitcoins came from like 4chan Bizboard and stuff like that. So, you know, the origin point of any culture, I think, does have a chain reaction, a domino effect, where, you know, the origin has affected the way people act now. And a lot of the people who are in it now probably have never even been on the Bizboard and 4chan and have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. But despite that, it still does come from there. That's how language works too, you know? So
yeah, that's a good point. Because I'm discussing with a colleague whether the word based still has alt-right associations, and we kind of both agreed no, it doesn't. But based.
Oh, it's interesting about that. It wasn't that. So that's very much like Pepe, because based came from LilB, who's an internet legend. Yeah. And actually, there's a tie in here, because LilB's manager, Sebastian, was the person who sent me in early December the Totenkampf logo and the Bored Ape Yacht Club logo and said, look at this comparison. And that's what started this. That's what sparked this whole journey. And so that isn't over my head, the fact that LilB is somewhat intertwined in this whole thing as well. And yeah, the expropriation, I prefer that word instead of reappropriation. Is expropriation of based, I think, is so real. And yeah, I think the internet has a cycle, like what you just said, how you said, oh, I don't think it's all right. It's like, well, it wasn't all right. It never was all right. It became that.
It got co-opted. Yeah,
exactly. The same with Pepe. But at the same time, you can't own words. You can't own images. You know, I think that might be the biggest takeaway is you can cry and, you know, go to the beach and cry at the wind, you know, go scream in the forest about it, but it doesn't matter. Like, the images, meaning, words, all take a life of their own on the internet at rapid speed. And what's important is education and people knowing context, because that's what gives meaning to things, is knowing the context.
And the problem is that the context can be fractal. There can be different kind of circles of context that mean different things for different people. And I watch what my kids do with words and how they co-opt them. And they use the word fuck from time to time, because here in the Netherlands, you hear fuck on the radio the whole time. Like, it's not censored. So they pick these things up and they go, what the fuck? And you go, no, don't say that. But actually, the word fuck is going to lose all of its power in the next 10 years. It'll be like saying crap. It will be completely powerless, which is kind of weird to me. The French work so hard to retain the purity of their own language. And they have all these rules in place, and they have a certain amount of French songs that have to be played on French radio. You can't stop it.
Yeah.
It has been bastardized by exposure to particularly US culture. And I find that fascinating. I also kind of push back on it. They're like, I want to construct a nice sentence, but who gives a fuck? If you understand what someone means, it's valid. And that's the end of the story. It's weird how that has all changed for me. The right and proper way to do things, and clinging to that, and, you know, perfect construction. Forget it. Go fast. Go and just explore what's possible. There's a definition of your own art here. I wonder if this is still true. You call your art, it uses online avenues to expose how social media can amplify narcissism and fear. Is that still true? Or are we beyond that into something else now?
I think that's true. I mean, it's that and a lot of other things. Was that in the context of Ho or something?
It's quite old. Yeah. I don't have the exact reference where that comes from, but I actually think that's pretty spot on. And I find myself both narcissistic and fearful when I come into contact with what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, okay. And that's why I
Yeah,
wanted to have this conversation.
I think it is that and other things. I don't also like, people have their own interpretations of things that I do, and I think that's okay too. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be, if it was so prescriptive, it would just be a manual.
Agreed. So we come to the big story here, which is, well, we should start with punks. So you took the punks on, and you famously minted that punk.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What were you concerned with? Because I know you're not an NFT hater, not at all. You're really actually a supporter of where this is going, and maybe not where it's at, but why take that one on? Because it's like saying Bitcoin is a shitcoin. You don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a huge NFT boom that was created by speculators who weren't even art speculators. They're more like crypto speculators, and maybe even more like finance speculators, like Gary Vee and people like that. And their darling was the CryptoPunks. And CryptoPunks I was aware. I used to mine Ethereum in like 2017. And I had a digital agency, I still sort of do, but it was much larger around that time, called OK Focus, who is also a New York-based digital agency, just like Larva Labs. So I was aware of their work and that project, I think since the beginning. I wasn't that interested in it because I didn't understand the point of it, which I actually regret now, not because of the money aspect. Honestly, not, but I've come to really appreciate, understand, and be enamored really by the power of 10K PFP projects in a way that I think it's difficult to explain or understand unless you get involved with it, unless you actually buy one, unless you become a part of the community and you understand just how real the feeling of digital ownership can be. And the feeling of having something within a larger collective, those are hard things to explain. And from an outsider, it probably looks crazy. But anyways, regardless, so I noticed during this crypto punk boom, where there was like this huge Sotheby's sale, and I think one of them at that time, it was the most expensive one. It had sold for 7.4 million, I believe, and I just was noticing the way people were talking about digital art and CryptoPunks as if it was mostly about owning tangential elements of the thing. Like, for instance, the idea of copyright, or the idea of utility, like being able to have access to Discord server. And to me, that's all very tangential to like the art itself. Like, if you buy a painting, you're not like, well, am I going to get into the server? Well, like, do I own the copyrights? Can I print T-shirts out of this painting? You know what I mean? You buy the painting because you like the painting, you believe in the artist. And so I had known that the company behind the CryptoPunks were really not artists. I'm not trying to dog them, but they're like a design studio, and the project wasn't really art. You know what I mean? It was a very cool tech experiment.
Okay, and sure, he calls it cool now, but on Instagram, he was very keen to call it dumb. So where does Ryder really sit in all of this? You see the problem here. What is the real Ryder? What is the performance online? And what does he actually think? It's always difficult to know.
But they didn't invent pixel art, by any measure. There's a lot of amazing pixel art that came before. And I don't know if it's even the best pixel art at all. So from a purely aesthetic standpoint, I don't think the CryptoPunks are that interesting. From a technical standpoint, they are interesting. But regardless, what I think was interesting about the technicality of NFT is the idea that in an age of infinite abundance with digital image making, when you put a JPEG online, it's like the right-click save people who are like, haha, mine now, screenshotted. Like if you don't realize that the token is the thing, then you literally have stooped yourself to the level of a right-click save meme guy on Twitter. Like, what's the point? I could just save it. It's mine now. I screenshotted it. No, what you're buying is the token. And the token is there to establish provenance and prove who made it and when they made it. And those two factors are extremely important in understanding the value of an artwork. And that goes for whether it's a digital artwork or whether it's a physical artwork. Those two factors are what determine the value of the artwork. If you can't establish when something was made, who made it, then the only value the thing has is purely decorative, which does have some sort of value. But in terms of artwork that's priced very high, you're never going to find work without real provenance priced high. And it matters because we as human beings exist on a timeline, and it's important to care about what came before. And judging something within the course of history is one of the most important metrics to understanding its meaning and power.
But on that point, as we started this conversation, we were talking about internet archaeology and the fact that ironically, the links to the past have been severed because the very technology upon which they're built no longer functions in the context of web browsers. And we can imagine that web browsers will probably go away in the future, and then none of this will exist. So how do we preserve that in any meaningful way, or can we?
Well, I think the blockchain, the idea at least of the blockchain in theory is that even if IPS was to go down, I mean, there is some. I think punks are on chain now. And there are several SVG based, artworks on blockchain, so fully chain based stuff. But the idea of, I think that's another element of the advantage and desire for putting art on the blockchain is this preservation aspect. And I think preservation only really exists if you really consider the token itself as the artwork. Because even if the IPFS goes down, even if it's not pinned anymore, the token will still be on the Ethereum blockchain, which will denote, who minted it, when they minted it. Yeah. And so that's what you're buying. So just in a sort of tongue-in-cheek, very simple way to provoke that and to kind of state without having a long essay about it what I thought was important and cool about blockchain. I reminted CryptoPunk 3100 to basically just show, because I was noticing that people really were attaching way too much emphasis on the image. And you're not buying the image. Anyone could look at the image for free, save it to your desktop. Like, you don't need to own it. Like, if you just love that image, make it your wallpaper. Like, no one's going to stop you. And so what you're buying is a token. And so I just wanted to kind of drive that point home. So I reminted it under, my own name on Foundation. And to my surprise, Larva Labs sent me a DMCA, which is very antithetical and contradictory, I feel, to the ethos of the blockchain, which is supposed to be like self-governing. I mean, that's really how Satoshi framed it. Was this was a new technology that would free people of bureaucratic oversight, where corruption can and does exist. So in that sense of respecting self-governance of blockchain, I think it's pretty antithetical and sort of a discredit to the purpose of these tools to like send DMCAs for NFTs.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? And I think it's because people feel under threat, that they get into a certain position and then they feel comfortable there, and then they don't want things to have a life of their own. And they sort of say, well, the internet's this wonderful thing. We're going to do all these wonderful things. We're going to change the world. And they're like, no, don't change my world. You can change everyone else's world, but please don't change mine, because I'm happy here. I don't want it to be changed.
Yeah, someone the other day was like, how would you feel if I minted all your work? I said, please, that just helps me. Like at the end of the day, if it doesn't have my signature on it and you're not selling it as me, which is impossible to do because you don't have my private key, so you can't mint from my wallet, it literally just promotes my work.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that I think people don't totally understand, that the more you copy something, the more value you impose on the original, because it is the original. That's
Also people say, oh, well, what about like copying a Nike or a Gucci bag or something? It's like, well, that's a physical that like has like an equal exchange value. Like, for instance, it is fungible. So what we're dealing with here is an image that literally is infinite. You could have 1 million copies of it. There's no original, and what we're actually selling is a non-fungible token. Something that no matter how you parse it, inherently it can't, there's no equivalent. One thing is not the other thing.
So your argument is that creating and selling NFTs is an act of art itself, and it's transformative enough to get you around takedowns, gets you into fair use category. I don't know how much of this we can actually talk about, but we're getting to the place where Bored Ape owners and people who see you as a feisty and troubling presence on Twitter will start to feel threatened. And I think we should go there. So why did you decide to take on the Bored Ape Yacht Club as a target for your satire? Because I think we should call it that at this point, because we haven't mentioned that before. But
I mean, so there's RRBAYC, which is like about 2 months old now. But then there's just Ryder Ripps being an investigative journalist and helping compile research that has been conducted by like a lot of people on Twitter, and publishing it under gordongoner.com, which those two things have nothing really to do. I mean,
okay, did you see what just happened there? Two different personalities doing two different things. There's the artist, that's his job, but then there's this hobby, investigative journalist, and the two are very much not the same. Watch what happens to Ryder when he starts to really get into this and see what you think. Does he really believe what he's telling us?
They do have something to do with each other, but one thing didn't like create the other in a way. I don't know, but like they're separate.
Well, yeah, but the notoriety of one led to the success of the other.
That's true. But Gordon Goner didn't like start off to be a NFT project or anything like that. I was shocked by what I was finding with the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and how the lengths that these people went to put very subversive, fucked up shit and then lie about it, to me was alarming and something that I needed as an artist to speak on, because it's a field of expertise that I have. I'm an expert in internet culture and internet art, and I didn't like what these people were doing in terms of their duplicity and lying to people about the hidden meanings and just the nature of their project in general. I mean, they've been lying about, the rights that they're supposedly giving to owners. There are 10 Bored Apes that are identical, except the backgrounds are different colors. So, this whole notion of you own these images is, let's say, shaky at best. And then, all of this like embedding racism, Nazism, to me is unethical if you're not going to be honest about it. There's nothing wrong with shedding light on any topic, talking about any topic, but you need to be clear with your audience that you're doing that. Otherwise, it's very sketchy as to why you're doing it. So for me, also, like, I had conversations with Guy Oseary early on that were very off-putting in December, that made me feel like I needed to pursue this more, because I don't like being threatened by people, and I don't really understand why someone would threaten someone over monkey JPEGs. Like, I thought these were just cartoon monkeys and innocent. But these are
private conversations with Guy Oseary. about
he called me on the
what you
phone.
were saying?
Yeah, he called me on the phone for like 2 hours.
Did you know him beforehand?
No, I didn't know him, but we have mutual friends.
You have mutual friends.
Yeah,
through entertainment, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, we have mutual friends, and so he gave me a call, and it was an off-putting call, to be honest with you. He was speaking in with vague threats, like I could help you or I could hurt you. You know, like this, like, do you want to work with me? Do you want to be a good guy? Do you want to be a bad guy? Like this kind of shit. And after the call, I was like, okay, I'm gonna. He asked me to unpin a tweet that I had on my profile, and it was about exposing Bored Ape Yacht Club. So I unpinned it, and then I didn't think anything of it. And then like a week later, he sent me this like voice memo. Which I thought was disturbing. Just because I hadn't been thinking about him, and it's obvious that he was thinking about me, and that he was sort of like, I don't know, that he like, here's the worst.
He plays me a message from Guy Oseary, and to be honest, there isn't anything in it, just him saying thank you. But there's one detail for Ryder that clearly stood out.
So he was just like thanking me and like using like Judaism, like Shabbat Shalom, to basically be like, thank you for being quiet. And the same day I found out about like the Gordon Goner anagram, I think, and a lot more info came to light. And, the fact that he had been threatening me on the phone and then sent me that voice memo, it seemed very shady. It seemed like something was very clearly up. And I am just the kind of person who will pursue something. Like I don't just forget about things and like move on. Like if something is really bothering me, I have afforded myself that ability as a creative to be able to make money on my own accord and like drop everything potentially to follow a passion that I have. And this was something that I became passionate about, and I felt a higher calling to pursue. And so yeah,
okay. So I'm going to just jump in there because there's a lot of things that circulate about you, which paint a less than appetizing picture of yourself. And I'm never going to be the one that takes third-hand accounts of anything. But do you have anything to say to that? I'm specifically talking about the tweets and the messages that surfaced around Azealia Banks. Those looking to pour scorn on Ryder's claims about BAYC went full ad hominem, surfacing highly disparaging messages he allegedly shared about the singer, Zara Larsson, with Azealia Banks, who he was dating at the time. Ryder was in fact working with Zara, and she promptly fired him. And I felt it was important to bring that up. Are they true? Did you say them? Is that real? No comment?
No, no. So Azealia Banks is someone I dated for a month. When I broke up with her, she tried to steal my jewelry and she threatened me with all sorts of extortion. And she wrote a bunch of shit on the internet that isn't true about me. And because she has much larger of an audience than I have, that stuff circulated really fast. She actually deleted it pretty quickly. But all that stuff that she was saying about me and this whole Zara Larsson thing, it's all bullshit. I mean, like she's the person.
Is it bullshit, or did you actually say those things? Did you actually write those texts?
I wrote what?
Saying, I forget the exact wording, but saying she should be a fat bitch and things like that. Are the things that are ascribed to you, did you actually write them?
In the context of a private conversation with Azealia Banks, who the entire time I was working for Zara Larsson, she was being very catty and mean and jealous that I was working for someone besides her. And so she would start this whole meme about how Zara is an awful person and Zara's fat and all this stuff. I never wanted to talk about that with her. And I was really offended that she would even like get involved with my personal life in terms of like my job, because I was doing work with her. And so she would cherry pick different things that were like me responding to her saying shit about Zara Larsson. That's not my thing. If you look at Azealia's history, that's like her whole thing, like calling like Lana Del Rey fat. Like that's her whole shit. Like she has a huge history of doing this kind of shit. And so like me playing along in like a friendly way in a private text message, yeah, like perhaps I did that one or twice. But if you read the entire chat logs, it would be very clear that like Azealia is the person who's doing that. But like cherry picking, like who called someone fat in a private message seems like extremely irrelevant. And like, why? What does that have to do with anything? But,
well, so I guess no. My point here is there's an internet truth about you, which is not true. It could be bullshit, but it has become the truth. And I think what I'm kind of investigating here is where the truth, if such a thing exists, about Bored Ape Yacht Club and the symbolism and everything else sits. Because for you, it is truth. But for a lot of people, you are a bigot when it comes to women and Zara Larsson. And I don't know anymore how to pin the word truth on anything or whether it's bullshit or not. But you see where I'm coming from, right? Because you can say it's bullshit, but you did say those things and they can be taken as a certain kind of truth. And it's really...
I in the context of a private message that was instigated by someone who stabbed their sister in the neck, who I was trying to be friendly with, I said those things. I've made jokes before.
Agreed.
Have you made jokes before? I'm sure if I went through your private messages,
no doubt,
and I went through every single fucking message you've ever written, I could cherry pick something out of them to make you look bad too.
But you know where I'm coming from, right? I'm not dismissing everything you say out of hand.
Like a vindictive person who's been arrested multiple times for assault, who tried to ruin my life, is I don't take much credence with that. And if people want to take that as the gospel, they should, just focus on reading TMZ and National Enquirer and stuff like that. Like those are the publications for them. I'm an artist and I am interested in having like much deeper kinds of conversation. But if you want to like sit around and quibble about who called someone fat, then, I might not be the right person for you.
Well, we talked about the Roger Stone playbook, but that's classic Roger Stone. Like attack the person, not the message. So
right.
We're getting into some...
I don't know much about Roger Stone, but yeah.
There's an amazing Netflix documentary. It's called Get Me Roger Stone. Put that at the top of your list. You'll see from all the way back to Watergate how Roger... It's truly incredible. But I think the really fascinating thing is the story that you have uncovered about the Bored Ape Yacht Club can do two things. It can help educate people, but it also, in a weird and fucked up way, it actually makes Bored Ape Yacht Club stronger. Do you know where I'm coming from? You've actually made the mystique, the lore, the story, the narrative around it stronger for those who wish to follow it. Do you know what I mean? By creating an enemy. Because I think you talked about how this culture comes from shitcoins. People who are invested in shitcoins, like they thrive in the fight. When people are calling it a scam, they embed, they retrench, and then they become kind of firmer in their convictions, and it becomes not quite a cult, but it's similar. In a way, you've exacerbated a problem that you were trying to alleviate by doing this. Is that something you think about?
I mean, that's just a byproduct of having a voice. You could say the same for any speaking out about anything. Does that mean we should all be silent? You could say
no, not at all. No, not at all. And I think it's important that we hear opinions that do not agree with our own, which is again why I really wanted to have this conversation with you, because I think a lot of people will instinctively think.
We're catching Bored Ape Yacht Club in a plethora of lies. These people have they let the world tell me I'm crazy for pointing out the Kali Yuga. Meanwhile, Wiley Arno's Twitter account bio has the Kali Yuga in it.
This is where things get interesting. Wiley Arno, aka Gordon Goner's previous Twitter account was Wiley Adult. Listed location, the Kali Yuga. And one of the big claims on GordonGoner.com is that this is a direct reference to an alt-right meme surfing the Kali Yuga, posted on 4chan back in 2014. I know it is dark at times, but you got to learn to enjoy it, man. Embrace being the bad guy. Surf the Kali Yuga. But here's the thing. In Hinduism, the Kali Yuga is the worst of the 4 yugas or ages. And before you ask, no, that is not a swastika in the middle. And it's believed to be the one we're in right now, the present time, which is full of conflict and sin.
What is the period we're in now? Because it seems like it's coming to an end.
This is Kali Yuga, man. This is some weird shit that was predicted by the Bhagavad Gita. This is
Guder Damarong, Battle of the Gods,
Yeah.
Ragnarok. Tell me.
This is what happens in cultures. Like, they go through these pitches, these ups and downs.
But Yuga is also the main antagonist in a Zelda game, a sorcerer who wields a staff that resembles a paintbrush. He's able to turn people into 2-dimensional portraits. And like I said at the start, 4chan and meta-irony. It is impossible to know where the truth lies. But if we look back at the Wayback Machine, it does indeed look as though any references to Wiley's old Twitter accounts have been removed, which is a story in itself.
And they're lying about saying it's from Zelda. Then they double down countlessly about it's from Zelda, it's from Zelda. They don't even know what video game console Zelda it's from. If you look at archive.org, the Input magazine first listed SNES, and then they changed it to 3DS because they themselves didn't even know. They're lying about, they said, oh, the April 30th date is something the writer got wrong. The writer didn't get that wrong. I reached out to the writer. The writer that was fact checked, and they had plenty of time to correct that if that was something that was wrong. And then meanwhile, they also picked April 30th as the date of the other side. So they're doubling down on their lies. There's no apology. Any normal company would say those 2 logos, holy shit, they kind of do look alike. A lot of people see these logos and they see them looking alike. Let's just change it. Instead of doing that, they're calling me crazy. They're calling you crazy. They're calling anyone who sees that crazy, which is now the majority of people, mainstream people, they're calling crazy instead of being sensitive and apologizing. The ADL, they cherry pick statements from a guy who once worked at the ADL who says that some of the traits are racist. They don't acknowledge that. They don't apologize for that. There are thousands of Black people who are offended by this shit. They don't apologize to them. They double down. Regardless of what you think their intention are, what their actions today speak volumes in terms of their egregious desire to offend.
Have you spoken to them specifically?
I just spoke to Guy, and I've reached out to them. I've tried to speak to them. I want to speak to Wiley.
And what would you say to them?
What's up with this thing? I would have a normal conversation. You know what I mean?
And they won't have that conversation with you.
No.
Well, I guess under the terms of the suit.
I've wanted to for a long time. What?
Yeah, under the terms of the suit, it's going to be difficult.
No, but way before that.
Yeah. And what was the message coming out of Guy Oseary's conversation with you over that 2 hours? Because that's a long time to be talking about stuff. Was there an attempt to convince you of the legitimacy?
I could introduce you to Kanye. I could do this for you. I could do that for you. All you have to do is play ball. That was the message. And you're an idiot. I'm a big guy. You're a little guy.
Yeah. So I think the message here is clear. Do your homework. If you are comfortable with what you see from Bored Ape Yacht Club, then good for you, but go in with your eyes open.
Right. That's another thing is people think I'm like a cancel culture guy. I'm actually that's one of the things about blockchain that I think is very respectable is that it's censorship resistant. I'm not into canceling, but I think if OpenSea is going to censor their platform, for instance, they control 95% of the market. And if they're going to censor it, they should do it with an even hand. They should censor, all of these. There's a project now called the Jews. That's like monkeys, dressed up like Jews or something.
That one is bad. The Saudis.
75 ETH in volume, and they don't care about that. But yet they're taking down conceptual art, and they take down a plethora of projects that just don't agree with their personal views on the world. And to me, that's antithetical to the blockchain. And so is suing someone over their free speech. There's countless examples of people who have used BAYC, Ape, and done literal scams. Ryder Ripps is known as the antithesis of Bored Ape Yacht Club. So, I squarely have positioned myself as the opposite of them. So for them to say that there's any confusion is flatly a lie, absurd, and they know that. They don't go after the hundreds or maybe thousands of people who have made spin-off projects or literally copied them. Like, for instance, in Tron, there's BAYC Tron. That's just the exact same thing. And there's no artistic message. There's no recontextualization. There's no provocation. There's no point. They're just making money. And my point is them selectively cherry picking who to go after speaks volumes. They're going after me to punish me because I'm speaking out against them. And that's all this is.
Yeah. And there's also the degree to which you might have done the RRBAYC collection differently. Do you regret how you launched that? Because it looks like it was a cash grab.
Why does it look like that?
Because the timing, because of the noise around when you launched it and how you launched it.
Did I launch it?
You launched it during NFT NYC. But there was a lot of noise around ApeFest.
No, I didn't.
Well, there you go. But the noise, the appearance was that you did.
Well, I didn't.
That it still seems.
I launched it like over a month before then.
So, but it's, yeah, but there's still kind of, when you launch it, you're still writing off that brand name.
No, it wasn't planned. RRBAYC wasn't a planned project, period. Like, it started by me provoking Jimmy to make a point about NFT ownership.
Yeah.
Say that his NFT is not the same as my NFT.
So if you didn't know, this is Jimmy, and this is how he represents himself on Twitter. This is Ryder, and that's how he represents himself on Twitter. It's the same ape. Jimmy's ape, which he actually owns, is also a founding member of Kingship, the ape supergroup signed to Universal. So Jimmy, whose voice you will have heard in our last film, has obvious grounds to be pissed off. He's still mad at you, by the way. He's mad as hell.
Well,
because your Twitter profile is the same as his.
Yeah. Well,
and what would you say to Jimmy?
I would tell him that if his JPEG is worth anything in the future, it's only going to be because of me.
There you go. Well, yeah. He's got his position on all of this. I mean, he would say that, Guy Oseary is Jewish and that you have a team of Jewish, Pakistani, Turkish founders.
Okay, well, Ryder Ripps is Jewish and RRBAYC is 3 Jewish people and a black person. So, okay. If that's your criteria, imagine saying that in court. Your Honor, my client could never have committed this murder. They are Cuban.
But this is why we have to talk about this stuff, right? Because it's easy to close your eyes and just go, well, it's obviously bullshit. It's obviously bullshit. But like, what if it isn't? That's the thing that you have to be really mindful of. Like, what are your own biases? I want to end on a more fun note. Where is the art in RRBAYC? Is it RRBAYC? It's a hard one to pronounce. I think the artistry is actually just RRRR. But where's the art in that?
Ryder Ripps, Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Because for me, like it's like I've seen you've done some awesome stuff over the years, and like stuff that really is challenging. I particularly loved Art Whore. I think Art Whore is utter genius. I think it's probably my favorite thing that you've ever done. When you see the artwork that these people created, it's so touching. And so it resonates in such a meaningful way. It's beautiful. It's like Harmony Korine, but with art. I loved it. I just don't see that with RRBAYC. I was like, well, where's the cool bit?
Where's the cool bit?
Yeah, where's the you bit? Where's the Ryder Ripps bit?
Oh, I mean, I think it's probably the greatest work I've done. It proves what an NFT is. It's provoking a company. It's shedding light on a very important issue. It's creating an army of educators. It's repurposing the exact same image in order to show that the token itself is the binding force in a community. It's not the image, it's the token that has meaning. And the people who have galvanized around this and who are the collectors of this have embraced conceptual art. They've embraced fighting, standing up against trollish racism. They've adopted like it's creating a culture and a community of collectors in a way that Web3 really was intended for. Web3 challenges the gallery system of art. The gallery traditionally would take 50% of an artist's money and say, thank you, bye. And in Web3, all of the people who buy NFTs are the gallery in a way. And it's up to them to educate people on the artist. And it's up to them to bring value and to create community and all that stuff. And RRBAYC is showing that the token is the thing, which it is the thing. The token undeniably is the thing. That's what you're buying when you buy an NFT. Bored Ape Yacht Club, by the way, isn't an art project. It's a membership to a club. That's by their own words. If you go to the Bored Ape Yacht Club website, that's what it says on the website. So, they're selling membership to a club. When people bought the NFTs, there was no art attached to it. It was revealed later. And the art that is attached to it, I'm questioning whether that's even art. Like, it's computer generated through pushing a button and randomizing a bunch of traits. It's done through a corporate entity, and it's done without heart and soul. And it's done for the purpose of creating a club and for the purpose of purely economic reasons. I believe that there's a lot of subtext behind it that is questionable and fucked up, especially when you start understanding the intelligence of the people who made it and their backgrounds as literary geniuses. So they understand very clearly writing devices, writing mechanics in terms of symbolism and things like that. So, I think illuminating these issues, bringing to light the aspects of society right now that are driven by celebrity culture, which is how Bored Ape Yacht Club has been propped up, is through paying celebrities, getting celebrities to endorse these products in one way or another, and how like the new gods of society are celebrities. And Bored Ape Yacht Club uses marketing in that sense. Ryder Ripps Bored Ape Yacht Club uses education and conceptual art to spread its message. We don't have influencers or anything like that. So I think there's a lot of elements of RRBAYC that that relate to other work that I've done. I'm a huge fan of appropriation art in general. I think shining a mirror to society is one of the most powerful ways to explain society to itself. And I think Warhol did that best with pop art, just showing a Campbell soup can, just showing a picture of Marilyn Monroe, just showing, Mao, just showing the world itself back to it in a new context helps you see it very clearly.
And he was obsessed with money as well. The paintings with dollars and things.
Paintings of money. Yeah, he did paintings of shoes. He did a lot of, and to me, great art really is that mirror. It's holding a mirror up. And, I think in the context of NFT, that mirror is so beautiful because you really are holding a mirror up when you remint. You're changing the meaning and context of an image by making a new NFT. And what we're selling here is NFTs. And what we're looking at and thinking about and talking about and creating blogs about and what you're working in is NFT culture. It's not JPEG culture. It's not anything else. It's NFTs. So I really think it's important to think of the power of NFTs as ways of bringing people together, as ways of shedding light on something, as ways of recontextualizing meaning. And I think RRBAYC does all of those things.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
Yeah.
I'll take that. Well, listen, thank you so much for this conversation. I'm really glad you agreed to have it because, you know, I made a film and it didn't have you in it. I had some old footage of you, but, you know, I try to approach this whole thing with an open mind. I own a Bored Ape and I own these things from way back when. And yeah, that was the moment I became part of Ryder Ripps' art piece. I hadn't intended to. I made it an hour and 20 minutes into this conversation. And as impartial as I'd wanted to stay, my own inner feelings betrayed themselves. Yeah. You know. And that's the thing.
When you buy an NFT, you make it your identity, you find community within it, and you have your finances tied to it, it becomes difficult to see reality. And that's someone who has experienced that bias on a personal level. I've been an owner of a lot of NFTs as well, and it's almost religious at a certain point.
Oh no, it definitely is religious, and it's not that you find it difficult; you just don't want to. And there's this sort of lizard brain that kicks in and says, "I will not allow this to hurt me, therefore it does not exist." And then you create a filter bubble around yourself, and you selectively listen to whatever it is that confirms your own biases. It's so dangerous. It's the most dangerous thing that we have in our culture. And the thing that I worry about with RRBAYC is that the further the more this gets whipped up, the more you're creating the equal and opposite problem in the other direction. And as long as you're okay with that, as long as you're sort of aware of that, then I think it's good. And I'm all for standing up for something and making a point. But you see how it becomes Animal Farm at a certain point. You know, the alternative is now just as bad as everything else.
I understand what you're saying, but I think at the end of the day, transparency and honesty and education are, those are the pathways to making society better. Yeah.
And you agreed to have this conversation and you didn't duck it, which I fully appreciate. So listen, Ryder, thanks so much for having this chat. Yeah. And listen, best of luck with whatever happens. I'm sure this is not the last we'll hear from you. Take care.
See ya. Bye.
Take care. Bye. So there we have it. When I made the last film, I knew we needed Ryder's own voice to give a better balance to the piece. And now we have it. But I'm left with yet more questions, as I'm sure you are too, because there are more voices we haven't heard from. The Yuga founders, and of course, Guy Oseary, because the allegations Ryder made paint a pretty dismal picture. But as always, I will suspend judgment till we've had that conversation, if we ever manage to do so. It's kind of like this weird, slow-moving documentary, but here's hoping. Spinning helplessly in a maelstrom of pure meta-irony, this, frustratingly, was the Defiant.